Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
I remember the exact moment. A guy I know, good guy, genuinely, great dude, posts that he and his wife had just bought a place on the water. Not a big deal for some people. Big deal for me because I'd been thinking something like that for years. Not obsessively, but just the way you think about how you're going to get one of those someday. It's kind of quietly filed away in the corner of your mind. And then I felt it, that thing, that half a second of something that didn't quite have a name. And then before I registered it, my brain went to work. Yeah, but he inherited the money from his father. His wife works in real estate, so they probably got it under market. And honestly, that area is not all that great. And the maintenance on the waterfront is probably brutal. Everybody knows that. For about 45 seconds or so, maybe even a couple of minutes, I completely dismantled this person's success. And it was all before I even knew I was doing it. And then this other thing happened that felt a lot like wisdom. It was this wave of gratitude. Well, I really love where I live. I've got what I need. Not everyone needs to have a lake house to be happy. I'm grateful for what I have. And I mean it. That's the thing. I genuinely mean that. I told my buddy about it later. Not the flash of whatever it was. I kind of glossed over that part, but the gratitude part, the perspective, oh man, that guy's must have been in it for the, he does it for the house. He does it for the money. He does it for whatever. And the perspective that I got while I was kind of commiserating with a friend, we had passed this kind of mutual test where we didn't, fall a prey to the nepotism and the wealthy family thing and the chasing the next thing and the never satisfied, shaking our heads. We walked away from that conversation feeling pretty good about ourselves. And neither of us kind of moved an inch. Here's what actually happened in the sequence. That flash that I had that wasn't quite envy. It was more like maybe recognition that there was a gap between where I was and where maybe I thought I should be or eventually be. And that's not a comfortable thing to feel. So I didn't feel it for long. The attack on his motives was the very first move. It wasn't even conscious. It wasn't oh man, I gotta, let me figure out what I can do to make this okay. It was just kind of automatic, immediately going after what I thought were the reasons why, he has something and I don't. It's kind of like the story of the fox and the grapes. And it's an ancient kind of sort of psychological thing that falls into everybody's experience at some point or another, or else there wouldn't be stories about it. So here's the part that's worth paying attention to. I didn't stay in that kind of attack mode. I didn't kind of go after him for a long time in my head. And I certainly didn't post anything about it on social. Instead, I pivoted. I pivoted to something that was genuinely sort of good behavior, at least in theory. And it was gratitude. Gratitude is real and it matters. And I'm not arguing against gratitude, as you know, because we've talked about this in other episodes. What I'm arguing against is the way I used it. I used gratitude as a justification. I deployed it the moment I was uncomfortable and part of me wanted to change and move. But in that moment, I made sure I didn't. That was gratitude weaponized against change. And the functional outcome of that was suppression. And then I found somebody to make me feel good about that self-suppression. And we called it maturity. We called it, rationally, controlling what we needed or, coming up with a good way to justify not doing anything. And that's the kind of challenge here. It's a type of transmutation where we take something that might have been might have been a feeling we can work with, turned it into a feeling that's more acceptable, covered it under a sort of a virtue signaling kind of medals we can wear in our chest. And then that also kind of in Gestalt feels like wisdom. It like put all that stuff together and it feels like, oh yes, I came up with a wise solution to feeling that maybe I wanted something different than I'm getting or what have you. And this is where we get to start doing some work. The question that I've been sitting with and the thing that we should think about as we do this work isn't the outcome. It's not that I need a house on the water or any of that kind of stuff. It's the emotional content of the conversation that happened within my head as I stepped from this flash of whatever anxiety it was through to finding a socially acceptable emotion that I could wear as a badge of honor. We're going to break stuff like down over the course of the week here and get to what this looks like and what it means and how we can understand how to work with these things ourselves. If you've ever had an experience like this, you'll probably recognize the story that I'm talking about. And if you haven't, look around. You've probably seen other people have these kind of reactions where when faced with somebody being successful, they immediately have to try and take them down a peg and then kind of work their way around towards why they're stuck. And all of that sort of mechanic is what we're going to break down and work with over the course of this week. See you tomorrow.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.